Good evening and welcome. Tonight we will be going over the history and geography of Arta in Djibouti. Now, for anyone who hasn't been here before, normally when I have the tablet on, it's completely dark, but you can see my hands a little bit tonight because I have a lot of notes I need to read. I don't have them all committed to memory, so sorry that it's not 100% dark. I hope that's okay. Arta, as you can see, is this coastal region in Djibouti, which is in eastern Africa. I'm going to start by zooming out just so you can see exactly where we are in the world. Here is Djibouti, one of the smallest countries in Africa, mainland Africa at least. And here is the rest of Africa. You can see this region is called the Horn of Africa because it's shaped like a horn. And you can see that we are in the meeting point between the Gulf of Aden and the Red Sea. A very, very important shipping area in the world, because of course this leads to the Suez Canal, which leads to the Mediterranean. This leads out into the Arabian Sea in the Indian Ocean. Huge center of trade. And Djibouti is right smack dab in the middle of it. So Djibouti is a very important place in the world. And as you can see, Arta is just on the outskirts of the capital city, which is also called Djibouti. So we have this little corridor here that separates the Ali Sabia region, which I've already done a video on, and the capital city of Djibouti. Arta, as you can see, is pretty dry, rocky, and mountainous. And that is because of the Great African Rift, which if I zoom out again, you can see from above that the tectonic plates here that make up Africa are splitting and ripping apart. And in millions and millions and millions of years, this whole chunk of Africa is going to become an island. You can see here. All of this here will be an island. And you can see the biggest chunk is happening right here, where it's ripping apart, but also the lake area down here, the Great Lakes region, as a result of that. But it's very evident here in Djibouti. So because of all of that shifting underground, it kind of brings up a lot of things, including lots of rocks and lots of volcanic, seismic, tectonic activity in this area. Important spots to mention here besides the Arta Mountains here, we have Lake Gube. I believe it's pronounced. I'm not sure if that T is silent or not. But as you can see, it's kind of like Lake Maracaibo over in Venezuela, where it's a big lake, but it's technically not a lake. It goes out into the sea. But even more important is Lake Assal, which you can see a tiny bit is in Arta. Lake Assal is the lowest point in Africa, another result of the Great African Rift, kind of creating these big lake beds. But Lake Assal is quite different because, as you can see here, it's extremely salty. It's saltier than even the Dead Sea. So not a lot happening in Lake Assal because it's very, very salty. That's all salt you can see there. We'll take a look at it in a minute after the history portion. But those are the major geographic regions of Arta. The Arta region is named after the town of Arta here, which is easily the largest settlement within the region, even though it's not a very big settlement compared to other places in Djibouti or Africa, etc., etc. It's the largest here. There's a little suburb area called Wea down here. And we also have a coastline. We'll take a look at that beach in a minute. A coastline here on the Gulf of Tajura, which is part of the Gulf of Aden, the greater area here. So like I said, very important shipping area, but it's not happening over here, right? No ships are coming in and out here necessarily. It's all passing by over here. So pretty much everything happens along here, not so much over here. So it's a very quiet, kind of a quaint little area. You can see some of the interesting land features here. Again, because the earth is ripping apart from below. It creates all of this interesting landscape. And I believe that's all. Yep, that's all I had to mention for geography. Let's talk about the history of this region, because Djibouti has a very interesting history. The one major power that we know of, and it's not quite ancient history because it was like 1,000-ish years ago, was the Assal Sultanate, which ruled further down in more Eritrea, Somalia, which if you don't know, this is Somalia, and Eritrea is up here. It was basically this whole area here was part of the Assal Sultanate, but they were ruling down here in what's now technically Somaliland, if you want to be super detailed about it. There's also the Assal Sultanate that followed them. Of course, sultanates, these are Muslim kingdoms, right? Muslim. I don't know the word to describe a sultanate because it's ruled by a sultan. It's a kingdom, right? Kingdoms are ruled by kings, sultanates are ruled by sultans, same difference. But the Ottomans would really come in and assert themselves for quite a while. They did not have the strongest hold on this area. I believe that's because the giant Ethiopia is nearby. Didn't really want to mess with them back in the day. They were extremely powerful. But eventually, in 1884, all of the European powers got together in Germany and put up a big map of Africa, and they basically drew lines and decided what parts would belong to them. And this corner went to France. And they created French Somaliland. So French is the primary language spoken here today, but there are many other languages. The main ethnic group in Arta, our region today, are known as the Issas. So they speak their own language, but French is the primary language of Djibouti. That would become a problem during World War II after France was invaded. So in 1942, an Allied invasion happened here in Arta. The British, and I think there were Americans. Did I make a note of that? Oh no, not the Americans. It was the Free French that came in and occupied the area here until they could hand it back to France after World War II. But the people here in the Horn of Africa area were itching for independence. And slowly but surely, Somalia would gain its independence. And Somalia was mainly ruled by the Italians. That's a whole other fish to fry, right? So is Eritrea here, but this was French Somaliland. And France did not want to let this area go. Again, very, very important part of the world here on this waterway. So they were like, well, let's give them some wiggle room. And in 1969, they turned their colony into the French territory of Afars and Issas, which was not what the people were looking for. I tried to read some details about this part in its history, and it was all very murky. I couldn't really find any definitive sources, so I can't say for sure what was going on here specifically, but I know in most of Djibouti, they weren't happy about being controlled by the French, especially after Somalia's independent. Ethiopia had been independent. Eritrea was part of Ethiopia at that time. They were the only little corner here that was still technically colonized, and they wanted independence. And France created this new area here, the French territory of Afar-Tenisis, because they had a referendum whether or not there should be independence or not, and it failed. So many people here believed that it was rigged, right? And there was a lot of outrage. Again, I don't know if that happened in Arta or not, but I'm sure it did to some extent, right? And in 1977, Djibouti would gain its independence from France. Sorry, wow, my voice just went away. Arta has come up in history due to the many conflicts in the area, mainly dealing with Somalia over here, because Somalia has many issues to hash out, still going through a lot, right? Not to mention Somaliland is up here doing its own thing. There's the conflict with Eritrea and Ethiopia, which for the most part has kind of died down in recent years. And of course all of the conflicts in Ethiopia, which we've gone over on my channel already, talking about Afar and I'm blanking the other areas, Addis Ababa. We've pretty much talked about most of northern Ethiopia on my channel already. But many of the negotiations that happened during these conflicts, especially in Somalia, happened in Arta. They've drafted some agreements, not necessarily peace agreements, but agreements in that conflict here in Arta. And that is because the Assas I mentioned are Somali, right? There's a huge Somali population here in Djibouti, so a perfect place for Somali peace talks. And that, I think, is all that I have for you. Let me just double check my notes, trying to read them here in the darkness. I believe that's it. So let's play around on Google Earth for a bit. I believe there's some pictures here of what Arta looks like, which looks really nice and quaint. A little beautiful minaret there. And yeah, this soil here in Djibouti is very, kind of reddish, right? Very rocky. Oh my goodness, I just pulled up UNESCO's website from Armenia. That's not what we're talking about today. Very dry, very rocky, very deserty, right? Not really the best place for farming. So it's mainly cattle here, grazing. Look at all these little weeds here. Or maybe they're flowers, I'm not sure. But you can see the mountains in the distance. There's the Gulf of Tajura there, little beach down there. Take a look at that in a minute. Kind of looks like a little wasp nest there. I'm not sure, maybe it's a fruit. I do not know. Very rocky, as you can see. But some fruit's growing, isn't it? Something can always thrive in any environment. And also you might have seen there is a very big military academy here. But I think that's mainly it for the town of Arta. I don't think there are any other pictures. There's Weya. I can't remember if Weya has pictures or not. It looks like they do, but there's a little baboon. That's cute. There he goes, running alongside the car. It's that part of Africa. She's beautiful. Very dry and rocky with baboons everywhere. Up here, let's look at the beach here, Arta Beach. Very pebbly kind of beach, right? Not exactly the kind of beach where you get out your beach towel and sunscreen and shovels and surfboards, right? It's just a rocky beach. You can still come and enjoy the water. I was looking at some of the panorama shots, and definitely the camel's enjoying it. people do come to enjoy the water, like this guy here. But it's not like a, like you would see in like Brazil or the Caribbean or anything. That'll be tomorrow's video though, so hold on to that thought. This is Arta Beach. Oh, and we got donkeys on the beach. They're enjoying the beach. Let me show you some of these. It's going to flash blue for a second. But there's a couple of really neat little pictures out here in the wilderness. Like, here's one. Let's take a look and see what this mountainous area looks like way up close. And yeah, you can see the shrubs, the rocks, and the dry soil. Definitely all of these shrubby acacia kind of trees thrive in this kind of climate. What do you think they're doing? Looks like they're having a little camp out here, enjoying their little rest spot. So that is the majority of this region, is just rocks and dry soil. I did find, interestingly enough, over here, I found a wildlife refuge, which doesn't really have to do with the region. You can kind of see another picture of what the landscape here looks like. But there are some cute animals. There's a sweet cheetah. There's a big ostrich. We got prickly friends here. Porcupines. I love porcupines. They're so sweet. Some big turtley friends. They're having a munch. There's a buzzard. Vulture of some kind. Little friend kind of looks like a Arabian oryx, but not quite. Very close. Maybe it is. Maybe just a tiny Arabian oryx. A little monkey friend. And what I really want to show you, though, even though it doesn't really have anything to do with Arta, this kind of does. He's very happy on that camel, having a camel ride. Oh, cute. I want to show you big ostrich. Where is it? Oh, look at the... Are these hyenas or painted dogs? I can never tell. I think they're hyenas. It's a pleb. Cheetah has a pleb. That's what I wanted to show you. You gotta always see the pleb. But we're gonna close out here on the shores of Lake Assal. Lake Assal. And I think I have to go like this to find a pin for you. Let's check it out and we'll close out the video here. So yes, this is the beach of the lake. It's all salt, I imagine. It's so crunchy and dry underneath your feet. But I imagine, this was all salt water from the ocean and it's slowly drying and creating the lake and leaving all of this salt behind. How fascinating. So that is it for tonight. If you enjoyed this style of content, please consider subscribing. I guess the one I just touched. Next, like I already spoiled, we are going to a beautiful beachy area. We are going to Cuba. And like I said, every region we're talking about this week, I said in videos before, every video this week is just outside the capital city. So we are going to be just outside of Havana, enjoying a beautiful region there. Look at this view. Wow. So be sure to subscribe so you won't miss out. I hope that you found this video to be relaxing and educational. And I hope that you have a good